You are a bad leader. Can you imagine receiving these words after a successful completion of one of the most interesting projects of your life? This is what happened to me in 2018. But these words became the seeds for my growth as a leader. I would like to explain the story of the leadership flower and how it was built based on these seeds. It all started in 2015 when I was handed out a project about how to innovate the teaching learning skill sets in management at an international level by the university. It was a very important project, and we estimated that we needed at least 8 people to manage it successfully. However, this type of project fell outside the typical responsibilities of the administrative staff. Fortunately, 10 individuals showed interest, and they created the team around this project. After 4 years of very tough work, we succeeded, and we went even beyond expectations. Clients told us how much they felt the emotional commitment and camaraderie among the team and the positive impact that this had on them. Indeed, still today, after this shared experience, we still bond beyond work and beyond professional roles. Coming back to this feedback session, which happened in 2018, I observed mixed reviews about my leadership. Some of the team members felt my leadership impacted them positively. They appreciated my capacity to invite them to voice within the teams, within the team meetings, to clear the air and manage the different tensions that can arise under pressure, and to always make them back to the big picture. They even sometimes remembered when we had hard times during the project that I systematically gathered the team and I reminded them of our mission, thus generating some invigorating feelings. Some other team members who were more dissatisfied with my leadership skills, they said that I was regularly an exhausting person with overly high requirements, and that under stress, my communication could become a bit hard and with lack of tact. That feedback was so rich that it took me some weeks to really digest it and extract all the nuances of it. However, I took time and invested time in organizing some ideas around that rich feedback in order to generate growth and actionable insight. May I invite you to join me to go through this journey of internalizing this rich feedback that I receive.
Sure.
Thank you. To do so, may I ask you to close your eyes and imagine that we are in the countryside, in the Provence area, amidst vibrant meadows of flowers, that we don't have our smartphones with us, so we are far from technology, distraction, and we are in an introspection immersion. Imagine those flowers around us, because suddenly in my mind, a beautiful petaled flower arose, and I made an analogy between those petals and the feedback of the leadership that the team made of me. And I saw suddenly 6 petals. 6 petals that represented the leadership facets of the leadership intelligence. You can now open your eyes. And the first leadership intelligence is about emotional intelligence. This aspect of leadership is about getting to know oneself deeply. To what extent do I reflect regularly about my strengths, my weaknesses, my fears, my beliefs, my aspirations? How am I resilient to stress? When I am overwhelmed, how do I react? What type of emotions dominate for me? To what extent do I receive them, embrace them, and accept them? Or opposite to that, I want to control them? Am I able to identify situations that tend to invigorate myself versus those that tend to drain me? Indeed, this is a leadership intelligence, and it helps me enhance my capacity to make myself more adult, more understandable, easier to cope with, and less defensive. Have you ever had some relationship issues with your boss or with your colleagues? Most probably yes. And this leads us to our second petal of the flower, which is the relationship, the relational intelligence of leadership. Although the project outcome is key and crucial, interpersonal dynamics among people will really make a difference into the quality of the supporting and motivating work environment. So it is important to think about it and to reflect about, do I feel comfortable in managing conflict when it arises? Am I open to hear feedback from the colleagues in the interactions without defending myself or without letting my ego decide and defend? Am I open to connect truly to other people's hearts and not only to their minds or intellects? Am I open to take this risk, to open my heart in the relationships? This intelligence is crucial in leadership. It allows us to have positive relationship to one another, to enable others to feel secure in the relationships, therefore increasing their confidence and engagement. The third petal is about collective intelligence of leadership. Collective intelligence relates more about me as part of the collective part of the team. And it relates more about the extent to which I'm able to discern the needs, the expectations of the team members, their abilities, and their potential to make them grow. To what extent am I able to foster the creativity that they can provide in a team by systematically letting them think beyond classical thoughts, making them trust about the ideas they can have even if they are not experts on a topic. Collective intelligence is what will allow to create the work structure together through a co-creating process in terms of how do we decide together, how do we communicate, how do we steer up the project, how do we handle misunderstandings. And in a collective intelligence setting, this is not authoritarian or directive, this is co-constructed. And collective intelligence is a leadership intelligence because it allows empowering the team in order to make it a synergy of the team and not only to summing up individual skills or contributions. Now, if I tell you, working with Brits, with Canadians, with Thai, with Vietnamese colleagues, if I tell you baguette, if I tell you Guangxi, what am I talking about? Culture. So the fourth petal is about cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence refers to our capacity to understand and deal with cultural differences constructively. You usually tend to interact with people who are similar to us because it requires a minimal effort in interactions. And very often we are able to say, of course, we can learn a lot from embracing cultural differences, but very often it remains like a theoretical statement. And we still tend to stereotype different people's behavior as a fixed trait of a specific culture. Our brain is a little bit lazy, and it likes oversimplifying the reality. And here we need to equip our brain to better embrace the multicultural reality which is ours and its complexity. But to what extent am I open to acknowledge the typical stereotypes of my own culture? Because we all have one, more, two, three. For instance, for French individuals, to what extent are you open to acknowledge the image of arrogance that can be felt abroad? And indeed, with the idea of, do I want to let this stereotype as it is, or do I want to somehow fight against this stereotype because I'm aware of it, and then I can show abroad that there's no reason to think like that when they look at us as French people? Am I open to different cultural norms? Am I open to know also, to get knowledge about different beliefs, spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs? Am I open to learn about geopolitical realities of our clients and partners, which can really enrich our conversations and avoid also unintentional mistakes? I am myself a product of a multicultural reality. I grew up in a Swiss-Spanish environment, my father being Spanish, my mother being Swiss. I was born under Franco with Swiss culture at home and attending a Swiss school in Barcelona. So it made me quite open to multicultural realities. And at the same time, if you think about the Spanish and the Swiss cultural values, you will very rapidly see that they are quite different. And trying to integrate them is still work in progress after X amount of years. And probably the reason why I live in France is explained by the fact that humoristically it is in the middle of the journey between Spain and Switzerland. This is my way to not favor one of my cultures over the other. This is absolutely a leadership intelligence too, because enhancing the cultural intelligence, we are able to reduce the cultural barriers and to take the exchange with different points of view as a creative endeavor for the project. Let's move to the fifth petal, which is the systems intelligence. Truly transformative intelligence. Because systems intelligence is about observing, seeing, defining a managerial situation as an open system with lots of interactions. And why is this interesting? Because we then stop putting the responsibility of any failure on individuals, but we put responsibility on the consistency or inconsistency of the system itself, on which we can operate if we have a leadership position. A system can be from a team to a unit to a whole organization. And systems intelligence also claims that individual behavior is further explained by a dysfunctional or a functional system rather than by personality. Did I explain the desired future that we want with the project clearly to the team members? Did we explain why the current situation is no longer the one that we desire? Do we give enough leeway, enough flexibility for initiatives to arise when usually we are afraid and we tend to over-control the process of change? Systems thinking is a leadership intelligence because it also supports change management initiatives in such a way that resistance to change is considered to be a natural reaction of any system. And this positive approach allows to lessen the pressure on people or having a negative look to resistance to change. The last intelligence is the political intelligence. Which organization can claim that it is free from political maneuverings? So the essence of political intelligence is to be able to navigate along the political games by keeping your own integrity. And the key question here is, am I fighting for the collective good, or am I serving some personal interests or personal agendas? Political intelligence is about creating room to have more means, more support by influential people, and sometimes for personal agendas. Now, here we have the global flower blossom. If I had something that I would like to share with you, is to ask you to reflect about yourself, to see which petal you naturally bloom in and which petal needs further nurturing and further attention from your side, petal by petal. Thank you very much.